It's a great pleasure to welcome Deon Stroebel, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at LSD Open. Deon is the Chief Innovation Officer, as I mentioned, and he enables organizations to accelerate innovation by helping them modernize faster and increase the ROI. We know how important that is in today's business. Firstly, Deon, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Good morning, Aki. I'm doing very well, man. And yourself?
I'm doing very well, thanks you. You've got such an exciting job in your organization, something that I'm very passionate about, and you must see some very interesting things. But before we start, can you tell us a little bit about LSD and what LSD Open is, what your organization does, and tell us a little bit about your track record of success with businesses and unlocking the value that we talk about?
Yeah, 100%. So LSD Open is a cloud-native modernization accelerator. Now, those are a lot of words. What does that actually mean? It means that, for the last 25 years, we've been a modernization-focused organization, always looking at what's that next technology and how it's going to benefit the customer. And for the last 10 years or so, we've moved very, very strongly into the cloud-native side of the world with things like Kubernetes and containers and all these technologies that a lot of companies are trying to adopt, which means we've been doing it for a very long time. So we've been helping organizations over the last 10 years, especially on the banking side, telco side. Most of these FSIs and telcos are customers of ours where we've helped them adopt very, very strongly. And what we've also seen over that time is we've seen the sort of curve or the journey that customers go on. So we have a very complete picture of what customers need to do when they start going down this road. And if you start looking at the different places, you've got the platform, you've got the observability of the applications, you've got the event streaming and how the data moves. That's really important. Automation is always a big topic of discussion. AI is the sort of topic that everyone is talking about. And finally, cloud. So we've seen these cloud journeys so often. And so we've come up with these journeys and we sort of know what these customers are going to start doing when they start going down this. And we've had some that we've got public case studies for, let's say, discovery, where we helped them when they launched the Apple Watch. We launched Kubernetes for them across, I think it was 20-something countries, where they were launching without going down. So that was a very big success story. We've had Vodacom come out publicly where I've done talks with them, where we've helped them adopt Kubernetes and containerization very, very deeply into the business. We saw MultiChoice was another customer of ours where we helped them adopt their video on demand, DSTV, Showmax, all those sorts of services. They were actually talking to us at the summit. So these are very, very large organizations that we've helped on the modernization side, and those have shown some very, very massive successes. But I mean, I can talk about this for the next 20 minutes, so I'll stop there rather.
Yeah, and that's quite a broad range of customers. So you're actually very specific in what you guys do at LSD Open. You've mentioned the cloud, and the cloud has been really critical in the transformation of many, many businesses. We know what a powerful technology it is, but of course, many organizations, as you and I know, run into challenges when they implement the cloud and they try and modernize their systems. And the costs are one of the things that keeps coming over and over. What are those key challenges that you're seeing that organizations face, including the spiraling costs that I mentioned below or subpar value? What are the biggest reasons for these unwanted situations that organizations find themselves in?
Yeah, so we've been doing some work now over the last couple of months, and we came across a stat that gets pushed by actually all of the clouds. We first found it on AWS and then Google and Alibaba and all of these, and it's that 70% of cloud migrations fail or stall. Now that is a striking number of these failures, and it sort of gets to 70%. Some have got even more than 70%. That was the sort of the lower number that I took. Now, if you think about an organization who wants to go into the cloud, why are so many of them not able to actually activate and activate well? And a lot of times, even once they've activated and they've actually made it to the cloud, then they're still not happy. They've adopted and now they're sort of regretting it. People are wanting to go back because of costs going out of control, and they're not seeing those benefits that they sort of thought that they were going to see. And the thing that I always say when I talk to customers is that we never blame the technology, right? The technology is there very specifically designed by very, very clever people. And the technology is not usually the problem. The problem is usually the implementation of the technology. So when we start looking at something as big as a migration from your in data center into the cloud, we have to start wondering about those decisions. Why are we moving to the cloud? That's the first one we want to be asking ourselves. A lot of times there's a driving factor. The data center is closing. We've got all of our hardware is going out of warranty. So we need to go buy 20 million rands worth of new hardware. We don't want to do that. Let's rather move into an OpEx model in the cloud. So there's lots of reasons why you want to go into the cloud. And how you go into the cloud is then the very next question you have to be asking yourselves. You also need to wonder whether or not the leadership has got the same idea of the reason for the cloud as the technology people. Because what we see a lot of times happening is that there's a very big disconnect between the different groups of people within the organization as to what the reason is for this cloud move, or what the major driving factors are, or what the major outcomes are that they're trying to achieve. So we really want to help when we sit with our customers and they want to talk to us about moving to the cloud. The first question we always ask them is, why do you want to move to the cloud? We don't think that everything needs to move into the cloud. We are an organization that believes very strongly in a hybrid model, or even a multi-cloud model, where you can run on-prem, you can run in the cloud, you can run in multiple clouds. And that's why modernization is such an important factor for us, because modernization, and I won't go too technical, but a technology called Kubernetes gives you that foundational layer that you can move applications between all these different areas without having to worry about, rebuilding or anything like that. So what we're seeing happening, I think, is that disconnect between the leadership and not having the right the right processes or the right outcomes that they're wanting to achieve. And then you also have people moving in a very poor way, which is what we would call a lift and shift model, which is picking up your data center and putting it down in the cloud. Now, what you're doing there is you're moving your problems with you. So again, there might be a good reason for that, like a data center being closed. You don't really have a choice. You have to move. But for most customers, that's not really the right way of doing it. And which is why we, as a cloud partner, and there are thousands of cloud partners out there, what we do differently is we focus very, very heavily on the modernization side. So we want to help customers, when they adopt, move to things like open source technology, away from proprietary licensed products, move to containers, away from very big monolithic applications, move to modernized DevOps, get fingers off of keyboards and go using code and automation to drive the way that you operate in the business. And then cloud native is the last one, which is getting away from these monolithic apps and breaking them down into microservices. So there's a lot of these things you can do that will allow you to get a lot more benefit out of the cloud, because what you were promised was it's going to run more cost effective. It's going to scale a lot faster. You're going to have access to all of this great technology, all the innovative edge tech that is out there you're going to be able to use. But if you don't have the underlying foundation to be able to do that, you're not going to be able to do any of that. You're not going to get the benefit of any of this technology. So we really spend a lot of time with our customers trying to understand what they're trying to do, and then also working very closely with them to say, look, you've got this whole plethora of services and products that you have now. Let's look at all of them. Let's understand which ones we can modernize, which ones do we want to leave exactly as they are, because you don't need to modernize everything. We don't believe that either. So let's figure out what are the low-hanging fruit, which are the ones that you're going to leave as they are because you just don't want to touch them for now. And then we can put together a nice plan that will take you over that modernization process. And the other big thing I want to lastly just quickly mention is that if you have done a shift into the cloud, that next step is the modernization phase. And I don't know if a lot of customers take that next step. They've now moved. Now they need to modernize. They need to go iteratively through everything that they're doing to go find those places where they can optimize, where they can find the benefits. And only once you start doing that will you start seeing the costs drop. You'll start seeing the benefits of the speed. You'll start seeing the benefits of the elasticity. If you're not adopting those, you're basically you're stuck in a bit of a loophole there, I feel.
Fascinating. And yeah, to your point about on-prem, so many people just decide, oh, we're going to move to the cloud. And it's amazing how many people I've spoken to just in the last 18 months. They moved many of their applications back to on-prem because it wasn't necessary completely to go to the cloud. And it's great that you guys have got that analysis, because that's where the costs come in. And, it's interesting you mentioned Kubernetes. And of course, Craig McLuckie is one of the inventors who happens to be a South African, which is a great South African connection to Kubernetes. And it's just amazing what an extraordinary technology that is. But you mentioned about modernization. So, and I love the way you've put it, because it just, it works with how my brain works. So thank you very much for that, Deon. But yes, once you get to the cloud, you can't just say, okay, we this is where we stop. You need to start modernizing. You need to start understanding what else you can do. So this is where LSD does really well. LSD Open works with their clients to help them modernize their systems, as you mentioned earlier. So no matter whether or not these systems are already in the cloud, whatever it might be, tell me about how LSD Open works with its clients to really modernize their systems, as you touched on earlier.
Yeah, so like I said, for us really, because we have all this experience for the last decade, and the great thing is that we have it across multiple customers, across multiple industries, across multiple geographical areas. We've sort of have this benefit now of being able to go to customers and listen to their problem and go, we've seen this before. Like we're not trying to come up with the solution to a problem here. We already know what we're going to have to do. And because we've got all this experience from all this way back, we know when and where modernization is actually going to be beneficial to you. Because if you're running a smaller app or anything like that, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. You're also adding a lot of engineering work and a lot of complexity to your system. So over modernizing potentially sometimes is also not the best idea. So I think having that sort of middle ground of knowing when to pull the trigger and when to do it and which ones to leave alone because it won't actually show you the benefit, I think is really important to understand. What we're also trying to do is we're really feel very strongly about not replacing people. So when we obviously come in as this modernization company, we're always coming in as the bad guys. So in 25 years ago, we're coming in with Linux and all the Microsoft and mainframe technology resources. They were all very upset because they're like, no, you're coming to replace us, and we're not trying to replace you. Then it was automation and like, oh, you're going to take all of our jobs. And it's like, no, we're trying to help you and guide you. And I think it's because of we have a very, very strict rule around that. We don't want to come in and say, you don't need these 20 people anymore. We're going to give you 5, and those 5 will do the job of the other 20. What I rather want to do is I want to come in and empower that 20 to give you 50% more, but you still keep the 20. We already have a big enough problem in our country with jobs and things like that for us to come in and try and replace people with technology. What we want to do is empower people to do more with the technology, not to replace them. And what we're basically trying to do here is we're really trying to work with the customers and understand exactly how the technology is going to be beneficial to them. And you can paint that roadmap. And that roadmap that you see happen over and over and over again. Because we know what that roadmap looks like, we can also go sit down with the customer and say, let's say you've got a big, heavy monolithic app. And that app is one single code base. Again, I won't go too technical, but we want to start breaking those pieces down. Now, putting those little pieces in containers, yes, will give you benefits. There will be better uptime. It will be lower running costs. Resources will be better used. But now you're going to say, well, last time when something broke, I could go log onto the server and I could know exactly where the problem was. Now I'm running all these microservices running all over the place. How do I know where the problem is? That's when observability comes in. So we know once you start down this road, the first thing you're going to ask us is, how do I find the problem? The answer is observability. Then you're going to start asking the question about how does the data move? It used to be an app talking to a database. Now I've got many, many services talking across many, many lines of data. So how does that work? Okay, you need streaming data integration or event streaming, which is a technology called Kafka. And that's the next thing you're going to ask us. And then you're going to ask us about how do I deploy to multiple places all the time? And that's when CI/CD and DevOps comes in. So we've seen this journey happen so often that we can really sit down with the customer and figure it out and tell them exactly what those steps are that they're going to be following.
Mm. Look, it's at the end of the day, it's really about adding efficiencies and making the lives of those existing people in the organization work better. And to your point, you're 100% right. Over years, if you look at the different layers that organizations have applied to their IT stack, and the complexity that has been applied, we need to start simplifying things, and we need to start making those technologies more accessible and easier to work with. And that's where the efficiencies come in. So what you're saying makes complete sense. And I think it's also very important, and I want to get your opinion on why you believe that it's important for businesses to embrace the latest technologies. They shouldn't fear them. When we talk about cloud, we talk about automation, hyper automation, AI. I mean, AI is, it evokes fear in so many people, and it shouldn't, because all of these things actually augment us to do things better and really add more efficiencies, as I mentioned. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, there's always going to be if you sort of look at that bell curve of adoption, you're always going to have those early adopters that sort of jump in very, very quickly. And then you're going to have sort of the vast majority and then the stragglers coming in. If you start looking at the customers or the companies and organizations that start to adopt these technologies, those are typically the organizations that are looking to solve one of three problems. They're either trying to grow revenue, they're trying to become more efficient, or they're trying to reduce risk. So those are the three reasons why any company pretty much does anything. Now, if we want to take any of these futuristic technologies or some of these leading technology or innovative technologies, that's sort of what they're trying to solve with it. Now, I think that what happens sometimes is that I think companies start to get maybe a skewed vision of what they're going to get. Like AI is a really good example of this. Everyone is trying to push AI into everything and thinking that AI is going to solve all of their problems when it's not. But what we want to do is we want to be able to adopt the technology that is going to be best suited to the business and what is going to drive the outcome the business is trying to achieve. So if I can say to a company, look, let's say you have got all of this potential work that you need to do, but I can have an AI do that for you in 10 minutes versus 5 people doing that in 10 days. That's obviously very beneficial to them. There's a great outcome that they're trying to achieve here. So what are we going to do for these 5 people to utilize the technology to get them even more? So what you're really trying to do, and the reason we want to be pushing this technology and moving on to that next technology, is because we want to be able to really push that envelope. The fact of the matter is your competition is going to be using it. That's what they're going to do. Someone else is going to come in. The banks should not be worried about the other banks. They should be worried about the guy or girl that is sitting at home with a cloud provider and AI coding technology that's going to come up with the next thing that's going to be replacing banks. That's sort of what the newer innovative technology is doing. It's giving everyone access to all the different technology to be able to build what they want. And I think that's really awesome. But you also then have the scenario where we want to be able to reduce the risk that we provide to the business. So if we can introduce a technology like automation, for example, and that means that when my developers, who are my very expensive, really important resources, are spending days and months and years on building out the code for my products, if they release the code, it gets checked and it makes sure that it doesn't fail. These are benefits that the business sees. There's financial benefits to running in the latest technology. You can see this in the cloud providers as well. If you choose the more up-to-date, latest version of the services, they're usually less expensive than the older versions of the services. So we always want to be pushing on that level because we want to be able to enable the scale for the business to grow as fast as possible. Also gives you ability to reach new markets and go into different regions of the world, especially with things like cloud. You can now go and say, I can go do business in other regions without having to worry about launching a business there. I can just use the cloud to get there. So there's lots of these benefits that the organizations are pushing to achieve. And then it's all about how do you achieve it? And how do you make sure that when you are pushing the envelope with these technologies, how do you use it responsibly? And how do you use it efficiently so that you don't go burning all the money that you were potentially going to make just on trying to implement it or trying to test it? Because that's the other problem that happens, is that people spend a lot of money implementing these greater technologies, but it will never give them the ROI based on the amount of money that they've spent. And I think AI is a fantastic version or story to be told there.
Well, listen, talking about AI, let's be honest, you've been around for a long time. AI has been around for a long time, but I think that AI, the way AI is changing and how much more powerful it's getting, how much more processing power you've got, happening in the cloud, that is what's defining how we use AI together. And it's a huge topic of discussion currently.
Yeah.
And it's a really it's really a game-changing technology. I haven't seen quite anything like the changes that it's implementing. And we talk about agentic AI and all the other stuff that you talk about. Why do you believe that AI is so valuable to forward-thinking organizations? Because that AI will define the organizations that use AI properly and those who don't use it properly.
Yeah, I think you made a critical point at the end there, because it's not about AI that is going to be replacing organizations or replacing people or anything like that. I think that it's companies that don't use AI will be replaced by companies who do. And it's the same with skilled workers, right? People who think that their jobs are at risk, they're not. Your job isn't at risk by AI. Your job is at risk by someone using AI, because those people will be a lot more efficient, get a lot more output, do a lot more with a lot less. And that's where the power of AI, I feel, is. And I think that from an organization perspective, you want to be looking at what that next level is. So we spoke about, what is my competition going to be doing? You saw Discovery doing adverts now where you can talk to on your Discovery Bank app, you can talk to the AI and ask it questions, and it will give you answers. And you see more and more of this sort of thing pop up. And I see a lot more companies doing that. And if one of the other banks decide not to introduce that, someone's going to, when they have to make their first decision to choose a bank, they're going to choose the bank that speaks to them. And those are usually the youngsters. And the young people are not scared of AI. For them, it's a natural way of doing things. So for them, they're going to go, well, Discovery says they can do this AI thing, and this is really nice because I can talk to someone, because I don't want to talk to a person, because mostly for young people, that is like the worst thing ever. So, you're looking at the technology and how you're going to be getting ahead of the competition with regards to technology like AI. You're also looking at the output of the people, like I said, improving that efficiency. You also want to be fast-tracking experimentation as much as possible, and that's something that AI does really well. I utilize AI a lot in my work, and what I see is you ask AI to create something for you, and then it gives you something. It sounds fantastic. It sounds believable. But you don't know, unless you know the subject matter, whether or not what it's giving you is actually the right thing. So that's where, we want to be able to put the subject matter expert with an AI together to be able to push that envelope. And now you're going to be able to get more experimentation. I can now get my highest performer with AI to test more features, test more products, come up with better ideas. And that's how I'm going to get my new features to market faster, my new products to market faster, my better efficiency. So I think it's definitely something that more and more organizations need to adopt, and but adopt responsibly, because that's another thing that I think is really important. Because I was at an event about 6 months ago, and someone made the comment about how do they get AI to be this complete end-to-end thing that will like talk to a customer, then open or close a bank account or do whatever. And it's like, no, you don't want that. You want to use it responsibly so that you can do the analysis, do all of that, but you have that human in the loop that's going to make the final decision, so that you can responsibly know that you're not going to have some system making a decision that will affect humans. I think that's even in our constitution, it's illegal to do that. You must have a person that can make those decisions. And I think the responsibility and the ethics of AI is also something very much to consider.
Very much so. And I think that we need to look at AI as something that augments us. It makes us, a human superpower and gives us access to a tremendous amount of information. Somebody said to me, you've got access to PhDs at any time at the touch of your fingertips. And that's how we should be looking at it. Now, AI enables a lot of automation. We've been talking about this, hyper automation, all of these kind of things. And the role of experienced developers is still crucial, right? And of course, talking about the job shortages and the lack of skilled people in the industry, also an issue. Could you unpack what this human role entails? We touched on it earlier, but what does that human role entail?
No, 100%. And I think that, like I was saying, you've got this scenario where you want to be able to put the person with the AI to make them better at what they do. I had this sort of thought 5 or 6 years ago, where when AI was sort of starting out, I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it be amazing if I could go to a doctor and the doctor would listen to me, understand me, him or her and myself. We've got a great relationship. He gets me as a person, but I'm telling him about this problem that I've got. And then he's got an AI that has got all the knowledge of the world to be able to say to him, look, I think it's one of these 5 things. And that doctor can look at that and say, based on my experience of Deon and based on the information provided by the AI, I can now give you a much better a diagnosis of what your potential problem is, versus just expecting one human being to know all of the potential medical conditions to be able to make a completely informed decision. And I just feel like that pairing makes so much more sense, to have a doctor plus an AI that has all of this information. And I think that what we need to be doing is we need to start working with AI, like you were saying, augmenting us with AI, not replacing us with AI. We're seeing that now with developing as well. There's a lot of talk around, coding and using these AIs to be able to replace developers. Now, I've done quite a lot of work on trying to build an app with AI, and I can tell you now, AI is not ready to build you an app. And not anything usable, production ready, that can scale to any sort of number of users, because you're probably going to be completely insecure. It's going to continue breaking. Every time you ask it to change something, it makes a completely random change. It's very frustrating. So it's not there yet, but it's probably at the level of about a junior developer at this point from a development perspective, if you get something like a Claude Code, which is one of the best one for development. But I think probably over the next 5 to 10 years, it will get better, and it will get to the point where it will be replacing a lot of developers. But that's in the future. And also, what are the developers going to be doing? Because even us as a company, we started out by deploying platforms. We can't always just think we're going to be deploying platforms, because platforms are getting easier to deploy. Vendors are making it easier. Anyone can now click a button and install a piece of software. What is our job now next? So we as a company can't stand still, just as us as people can't stand still. We need to always be looking at what that next level is. The other thing around how the human role comes into this is, if you look at something like education. Education is something that I feel very strongly about as well. And I started looking at how we can utilize AI to improve education. And we've seen studies come out now with where people are using AI to teach kids as a tutor. And they are actually learning at 4 to 5 times faster than being taught in school with teachers. And it's not because the teachers are not competent. It's because what is interesting about AI is it's very affirming, right? So if you ask it a question because you don't understand something, it tells you, wow, that's a really clever question. Let me answer it for you. And you say to it again, I still don't understand. Explain it to me again. It'll say, don't worry about it. I'll explain it to you again. And it will be very, very comforting, and it will be very, very gentle, and it will just help you, and it will keep answering your question. People tend to get annoyed after the 4th or 5th one. So I just think it's that ability to be able to ask it. So that's maybe a little bit of a side now, but you just see this, how AI is coming more and more into the world. And I think it's got so much positivity, especially when people start working closely with AI, and the output and the amount of things we can create with it, I think will be absolutely incredible.
Deon, if people watching this, an organization wants to start working with LSD Open, how should they proceed? How do people get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, lsdopen.io. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find myself on LinkedIn as well. I'm on there quite often. So yeah, I think that's probably the best places to go.
Okay, fantastic. And set up that consultation. Let LSD Open look at your infrastructure and see how they can optimize things and make things more efficient, and really get the maximum return on investment on your technology investments. And I think it's critical today with the complexities and the different layers that we're applying to business, because at the end of the day, if you're not ahead of the curve, you're going to be left behind. Deon Stroebel is the Chief Innovation Officer at LSD Open. A fantastic, insightful chat, Deon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Aki.